So welcome back. We're looking forward, B'ez Hashem, to continue the Geres HaKodesh Yud, which is the 10th letter of the Alter Rebbe, the 10th holy epistle of the Alter Rebbe. We're holding on page 228. Would be Kuf Tes Vav, is where the actual page that we're learning. On the right side would be 228. It begins V'hinei. We did do a few lines into the V'hinei, but it begins in a paragraph. We'll start from there. We periodically give a little bit of backdrop. Generally, the Sefer Tanya, the way it's divided, this happens to be the fourth segment of the Sefer Tanya Kadisha, the Holy Sefer of Tanya, which has 5 segments, with mentioned in the past. 5 segments is with precision. This is the Teira Shebiksav of Teira Sachsidus. In this segment itself, we from time to time, of course, with the newcomers, mentioned the uniqueness, the distinctiveness of this segment, the way it's set up, but we like to do it at times, again, for those who are tuning in for the first time, especially in this segment. But I will just say, we did so in the beginning of this very Igeres. I believe this is the 3rd class, so the beginning of the 1st class. If you want to tune into it, again, it's all set up on the screen. Which would be the first of this 10th Igeres. We gave a little backdrop, so we'll be able to, so if you can tap into it, easily tap into it, and so we'll be able to go further. We'll be able to start the class right away. We'll do that. Wherever you're watching it, when I say on the site, of course I'm referring to the original website, which is tanyaonline.com, one word, tanyaonline.com. You have access to all the previous classes of this segment and all the previous segments which we merited to conclude. We do mention from time to time that there is an advantage of learning together over here on this website, because as there's a separate scroll bar for the text, which makes it simply easier to follow. We do mention this from time to time as well. So that would be, again, tanyaonline.com, wherever you're watching it. But again, if you want to have a little bit more of the information of the previous classes, it's all lined up on that website. So we begin V'hinei. So the Alter Rebbe was basically telling us, explaining us, how Torah is associated with Chesed and Gvura, quoting the pasuk Mimine Eish Das Lame. Again, the previous classes we elaborated on the connection of Mimine, the pasuk Mimine Eish Das Lame. How Mimin is Chesed, of course. Mimin is Chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Eish is Gvura. Explained a little more in detail the connection, even though it's easy to understand and perceive and appreciate why Eish would be Gvura, Yemin is Chesed. But again, it's all of these previous classes. We don't have to mention that again. So the Alter Rebbe explaining how Torah is primarily Chesed, because it's the revelation of Elokus, of godliness in all Eilamis, in all the worlds, particularly in this Eilam. Torah is called Eir. It's there. It's meant to illuminate. It's meant to bring light into this world, namely this world. So this is the Gili of the Eira Chesed, again explained and more elaborated in the previous classes. And then you have the Eish, which contains this great Eir, that it's able to come and invest in the physicality of this Eilam, of this physical world. And Alter Rebbe points out that you notice the significant majority of our mitzvahs are performed with matters of Elam Hazeh, the Tefillin, the Mezuzah, the Lulav, the Esrig, this great Eir, which is the Eir of Torah, which is the true infinite expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the ultimate infinite expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Anochi Hashem Elikecha, which was the presentation and the revelation of Matan Torah, that Anochi is invested in the end of the day in every part of Torah, in every mitzvah. So that great revelation, to be able to have a physical container like the lul of the esrog, and again, there is maximum measurement to every mitzvah. That, of course, you need the gvura, as explained in the previous classes. You need the midah of gvura in order that the chesed should perfectly fit, and the items of Elam Haza to be the conduit through which the mitzvah is performed, and this great revelation of Torah becomes manifest in Elam Haza. So, Mimine Eish Das Lame. Das is, of course, the Yiddishkeit, Das is our Torah. So, and again, is explained in the previous class. Alter Rebbe even says, even Ava V'Yira, which is more an emotional experience, so there's no physical container. Nonetheless, there is still the element of Gvura, even when it comes to love and to fear, as again, I'll explain in the very end of 228, in the beginning of 2 Kuf Tez Vav. Also, just a quick away of the previous class, Alter Rebbe point continues with this idea in this next part, the next paragraph. You mentioned at times it's very rare that in Tanya that a Perek should be broken up into different paragraphs. Of course, we do find it more in Igeres HaKodesh, especially later, the lengthier Igeres. This is one of them. Where the Alter Rebbe, actually, there's only this is 2 paragraphs in this whole in this whole presentation, this whole Igeres, this whole letter, and this is where the Alter Rebbe, this point also breaks apart the divides. That is this Igeres, this letter. So we continue v'hinei l'fisha mitzvos nitan lanai dei slapshus midas gvura v'tzimtzum ha'ara chulu l'chein reva mitzvos yesh lein shir mitzumtzum. The reasons why the Alter Rebbe would divide, of course, the Alter Rebbe had his reasons. Especially you see in for example, Kuti Amorim, in all 53 chapters, the Alter Rebbe has, I believe, only 4 chapters which are divided more than, not much. 2 paragraphs. I don't believe there's more than 2. Maybe there's one has 3, if I'm not mistaken. We try to put our own understanding when we learned it, then why the Alter Rebbe would break it apart, would divide and distinctly divide, because the significant majority of the chapters in Likutei Amarim is, for example, there is no divide in the chapter itself. Igeres HaKodesh, you notice that there is more of the divide within the chapter. I would just simply say that why would Alter Rebbe, apparently he's following with the same theme, why would he divide this Igeres, is because in beginning the Alter Rebbe says the fact that it comes into matters of Elam Haza, the mitzvah is performed with matters of Elam Haza. That's the first demonstration of the connection of Torah to Gvura, as explained in previous classes. Now the Alter Rebbe says even they enter into Elam Haza, which is again part of the theme of the Alter Rebbe, or the message of the Alter Rebbe, denoting the mitzvah of tzedakah without any measurement at all, a different dimension to that very mitzvah of tzedakah, which explains the Chazdei Hashem Kilei Samu. Again, you have to see the previous and the first class, as the Alter Rebbe quotes this pasuk, speaks about the different types of chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, chesed, which is more a containing chesed, which is called chesed elam, and then there's true chesed, bli gvul, infinite chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that comes to the mitzvah tzedakah, but not stam the mitzvah, it also has a measurement, but as we're going to learn, but the bli gvul dimension in tzedakah, the idea that there is no measurement in giving tzedakah in the context of tzedakah being the tikkun of chet, the correction of sin, and for that, as it says, kol asher yitin leish bad nafshe, a person would give everything away for his physical benefit or for his physical existence, so too for his spiritual existence, for the correction of his nefesh, kol asher yitin leish bad nafshe, there is that component of limitlessness in tzedakah, and that brings about the chesed Hashem. So the Alter Rebbe takes it to a new level over here, and therefore would think that's the reason why the Alter Rebbe divides this very Igeres. Again, just my peripheral understanding. So here the Alter Rebbe goes on. Even the mitzvahs which are already expressed and performed through the physicality of Elam Hazeh, which of course you need the Gvura component, as we explained in the last class. there is an additional dimension of Gvura, the fact that the mitzvahs are so measured and so and performed with a maximum precision, which is again another dimension of Gvura, as we're going to learn over here today. The fact that mitzvahs, as we begin, the mitzvahs are given through the investment of midas of Gvura, the attribute of Gvura, discipline of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and tzimtzum, which is contraction, condensement of the ha'ara, of the light of chesed, which that's the makeup of Torah, which what Torah is all about. But nonetheless, because there is gvura, therefore reva mitzvahs yeshlo shir mitzvum. The significant majority of the mitzvahs have a condensed measurement how they would be performed in the way they're executed. The length of the tzitzis, the 12 gudlin. Gudlin is the measurement of a thumb. There's 12 gudlin, so it's 12. And 12 is again about exactitude, about an exact measurement. Tefillin, it's ba'ayim eletz ba'ayim. The tefillin have to be 2 fingers by 2 fingers, the minimal. Of course, it could be a bit larger. But one thing is important, that, and he brings it over here, murubois. They ought to be square. Whoa, that's the idea of Gvura. One would suggest, okay, they invested in matters of Elam Hazah because so the Hashem established that that's the way the Torah would be performed, and that's the Gvura dimension which exists in Torah. But because it's a mitzvah, it's dealing with the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why are we placing measurements on these performance and the performances of the performance of the mitzvahs, and why are they so important? Why are they so significant? These precise measurements, when we're dealing with something that great of the Gilui area, the revelation of the area of Chesed, which is again that Chesed is about the extension of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. For whatever reason Hashem had, that He wanted the container for this area, the way that the mitzvah is implemented through the physicality of Elam Hazah. Okay, they're the idea of Gvura, but what's with the precision, the precise measurements? That doesn't seem aligned with what Torah is all about, the revelation of Anechi Hashem Alekecha. Why and not only that, when you don't perform, you don't execute the mitzvah in this manner with this maximum precision, many of the so the mitzvah is not, it's considered disqualified. You're not really performing the mitzvah. As an example, merubois, this idea that tefillin ought to be exactly square. This is something which is b'di'evet. You put on the tefillin and they're not square. It's clear that the length is larger than the width. As an example, you're not fulfilling the mitzvah of tefillin. Why would that be so when you're dealing with bringing down the chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And you're dealing with the enormity of the light, which, okay, we need the gvura, just to the fact that Hashem wants it to be realized through matters of Elam Hazah, but that type of precision, and it seems to be such a underscoring a certain sense of limitation. It has to be performed like that. If you do it different, you didn't really fulfill the mitzvah, or you did not fulfill the mitzvah. What's that all about? Or we're dealing with drawing the great light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Rebbe says this idea of Gvura really captures the entire mitzvah. Mimine eish das lame, the eish takes, it's another step, it's another dimension within that expression of Gvura of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the fact that there is precision, even the mitzvahs already are expressed through the physical, which was explained, the connection to the Gvura in the previous part of this chapter of this Igeres. The paragraph before, the Rebbe says, no, this idea of Eish penetrates every part of the mitzvah. The fact that there is precision and exactitude, how this mitzvah, even again, it's expressed with the physical, there's an additional dimension of Gvura, that it has the measurement. By tzitzis, the Yud Beis Gudlin. He goes on with tefillin, as we just mentioned. The lulav has to be 4 tefachim. This is a tefach. The lulav cannot be less than 4 tfachim. Usually our lulavim are a bit longer than that, but the minimal a lulav can be is 4 tfachim. Sukkah has to be zayin tfachim. Of course, you're talking about the width of the sukkah. The height, we know it could be minimally 10, not higher than 20, which is again measurement. But Al Trebes brings about the width of the sukkah. Shofar has to be a tefach. The shofar also has a measurement. Again, most of our shofars are longer than a tefach, but there's a minimal measurement of the shofar. It can't be less than a tefach. The mikveh, for example, has to be 40 sa, not less. If it's less, you went to the mikveh, but you really didn't go into them, as if you didn't go into the mikveh. What's that all about? I'm doing the mitzvah. Why major these minors? No, there's exactitude and precision in every single mitzvah. If there was 39 point even 9 saw in the mikveh, and you went to the mikveh, you did not fulfill the mitzvah of going to the mikveh, as an example. When it comes to sacrifices, there's also a limited measurement, lizman, for example, in the context of time. There's certain sheep in certain korbanos, you have to be a year and not over a year. It comes to Elim, the ram, it has to be b'nei shtayim, it has to be 2 years. Parim, there's another age framework bracket for the parim, which is the next step, the different type of korbanos, sacrifices. Again, there's the sheep, the ram. It's reflected namely in the libations and other, the parim. Also, how many people brings it to would be involved in a korban, which is with the cow, as an example, being simply a bigger animal, and so on. There's different ways in the expression and work associated with the different types of korbanos, if it's the sheep or the ram or the parim. But namely, when it comes to the libations, there's different libations, different measurement for the libation. Again, measurement, precise measurement when it comes to the libations of the sheep, the ram, the parim. But here the Alter Rebbe speaks about the zman, the time, that when it comes to a keves, it's a year, ram is 2, parim is more than that, chulu, etc. And if you didn't follow the precise time, meaning to say, if you didn't follow the halacha, which tells you how old the keves has to be, the sheep or the ram or the cow, and you went over even by a bit, it's disqualified, as if you did not bring that sacrifice. And the Alter Rebbe goes on, he says, even when it comes to charity, which apparently one would say, oh, charity, I have this amount of money, I can give all this money away. Or it comes to the Gemilas Chasadim, when it comes to extending kindness, that apparently there I don't think on the surface that I could identify any limit. No, we say that even in halacha, tzedakah also has its measurement. Tzedakah also has its limitation. How much is one meant to give tzedakah and how much he's meant to keep for himself? The Alter Rebbe speaks about not only the way it is technically, I have a certain amount of money, I would think I can give so much away. Again, in the context of tzedakah, later the Alter Rebbe is going to point out a new dimension in tzedakah. But right now, when he speaks about tzedakah, he adds another idea that tzedakah is from the beams through which the world stands on. One would say that you want to make sure the world is very well anchored in and pegged, if you will, into Olam and standing strong. So because charity is one of the beams to which the world stands on, so apparently there shouldn't be any measurement how much tzedakah one would be able to give and perhaps should give. And we see, like the world was created and stands and erected through chesed, through kindness. And kindness would be in our avodah, through which we bring again firmness to Elam Hazah, is through chesed, through kindness, through giving tzedakah, through extending oneself in actual kindness, which could be expressed in multiple ways, but classically would be giving charity, a lot of charity. Nonetheless, according to Allah, there's a shirkot. There's again a measurement, an established measurement. The first thing a person has to know halachically, he must give a tenth, which is generally important to note. That whole idea, as every mitzvah, we have to educate ourselves very well how and when, in order to perform a mitzvah, the way we're meant to perform the mitzvah. When it comes to tzedakah, there is the basic education. The person has to know that if you made $100 profit, the $10 is doesn't belong to you. Meaning to say, according to Torah, you must give a tenth. And that would be midah beinanis. That would be an average giving tzedakah. If you want to do the mitzvah in a choicey manner, in a special manner, which is the idea of mitzvah min hamuvchar, one is allowed to extend himself to give a fifth. If you made $100, now you can give up to 20, and including $20 to tzedakah. So 10 you must give if you want to do the mitzvah in a choicier manner. So then you can give a chaymesh, a fifth, which in this example be $20. So over here you see that even tzedakah, even extending oneself with kindness, which this is the foundation, this is a beam through which the world stands on. And if we might add that, this is my money, let me just give it all away. So for the clear perspective of tzedakah, it says even if you want to do the mitzvah in a very special manner, mitzvah min hamuvchar, in a choicey manner, it's up to 20%, including 20%. In other words, up to 20, including 20%. So you see the idea of gvura connecting to every single mitzvah, not only in the fact that it is executed, the mitzvahs are executed through the physical, via the physical, which of course, as we explained, you need the gvura dimension, but it goes further that even when it connects to the physical, there is an additional idea of gvura connected to the mitzvah, that it's always associated with measurement, with midah and shear, limitation, a certain precise way, the way the mitzvah is able to be performed. If you didn't do it like that, you didn't follow the measurements, it's as if you didn't do the mitzvah. Now, of course, if someone gives 30%, you can't say that he did not do the 10 or 20%. In this case, it's different than the tefillin example that we gave. But nonetheless, you see how the halacha underscores the idea of measurement even when it comes to tzedakah. So again, in this area of tzedakah, the fact that Torah does not particularly appreciate, again, talking about tzedakah itself, the mitzvah of tzedakah, in its definition as charity, based on the mitzvah which Hashem says you should extend yourself to another party or to many parties. Again, the idea of tzedakah, there's different areas of tzedakah, someone does b'mamayne, b'nafshe, and so on. But classically would be with money. And of course, if someone gives 30%, at that point it doesn't disqualify his obligation of 10 or the mitzvah min hamuvchar, that choicey way of doing the mitzvah of 20. Understandably so. Nonetheless, we still see the idea of measurement embroidered into this mitzvah. This measurement, the way it's expressed even in the mitzvah of tzedakah. And Alter Rebbe says, perhaps tzedakah would be different because the world stands on chesed, and therefore you want to make sure the world is standing very firm and not to be a shaky world, so give more and more. Still, the halacha still, there's the 10%, which is your obligation. To do this in a very unique and special manner is 20%. Why the measurement? Again, it's the expression of the gvura of HaKadosh Baruch Hu incorporated into every single mitzvah. Rebbe goes ahead when it comes to tzedakah, and he says, Nikra chesed eilam. This would be the chesed eilam. Is, you remember in the very beginning of this chapter, the Alter Rebbe speaks about the two types of chesed. One is called chesed eilam, and one is called the rav chesed. So he goes back, and again, you can see this, it's a click away, the very beginning of this Igeres. So this is called chesed eilam, because chesed keil kol hayom hamislabish ba'eilam v'salyenim v'tachteinim adei serusu l'sato mitzvah tzedakah b'chesed she'esim min yodem zeh mzeh. This is also the connection with what he said before, that the world stands on chesed. We do kindness one with each other in this world. Hashem does kindness, yes, with all Oilams, with all the worlds, including this very world, that he extends himself, extends his energy, providing for this world. How much does he provide? He provides a lot, because at the end of the day, to provide for a grand world, even Elam Hazah, how much more so the Elam Esalyanim, of course, is a great hashpah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's still Chesed Elam, because it's the kindness which Hashem is connecting to Elam with the measurements, with the parameters of Elam, and the details and the specificities which exist within every single Elam, including this world. There's millions of components, billions of components within Elam Hazah itself, which make up this world, even in our own life. Generally divided, healthy children, and all levels. Again, there's the sub-levels within every single bracha and all our needs. Healthy physically, psychologically, emotionally, ourselves, children, and the overall longevity, parnasa, as an example. And that itself, again, is the subdivisions, peace, calm, tranquility, and the demands of Olam itself, that there should be a good growth on the field, and trees, and enough rain, and so on. There's millions and millions of components, even within this Olam, which we're aware about. So it's enormous chesed, but still it's a chesed which would be called chesed Olam, because it's a chesed which comes into an Olam. And Olam is Lashon Hela v'Hester. Olam is confined. Every Olam, as we explained so many times, even Olam is Elyonim, the supreme world. How much so, more so, Olam Hazah Tachtin. Everything is about is expressed in manners of finiteness, the finitude. This is what Olam is all about. Particularly Olam Hazah Tachtin, the very physical world, which everything is about limitation. Time, now, tomorrow, the day after, or now, the past, the present, the future. 5 minutes from now is not 10 minutes from now. It's all defined. It's all about about Hagbala. The space, it's here, there, south, west, north, east. The table, as an example, has everything is about measurement in this world, because this is what Olam is all about. Olam, Lashon Helam v'Hester. We explained this so many times. It's about Hagbala. It's about Midah. It's about Shir. So you have enormous chesed, because you have to provide this energy provides and brings bracha to so many areas of Olam. And of course, it's enormous energy, but nonetheless, it's still called chesed Olam, because it's fit into Olam, all Olamis, and specifically or additionally Olam Hazeh Tachtin, which is of course all about Hagbala, about limitation. What draws this Eir? Salter explains, this is the Sirusa D'Lasata, through our arousal of the mitzvah of tzedakah and chesed, the charity and kindness which mankind does one with each other. We know this is the very beginning, the setup from the very beginning of creation. Isarusa de Lasata arouses the Isarusa de La'ela. We had it actually in a pasuk in Bereshis, that you cultivate the earth, it will draw the rain. The rain did not come down yet, because Adam Harishan had to be aware that the rain is a blessing, cultivate the earth, and then the rain would come down. And in general, in our Avodas Hashem, Yisrusa de L'Sato draws Yisrusa de L'Ela. The arousal of below draws the arousal of above. So it has to be aligned with what you want to draw. If you want to draw the kindness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of course, the way to draw the kindness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is to be kind with another party, with many parties, to do chesed, to do kindness, to do charity work, to give charity, to give a lot of charity. Of course, when you're here, we're talking about the measurement of charity again, because you're drawing the chesed olam, the can't say it's totally a finite chesed, because the chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even to bring about this bracha or vivify and vitalize an entire Olam Hazeh, you're talking about the enormous chesed. Let's not make a mistake. Even chesed olam is an enormous amount of chesed. but because it connects to Olam, to the finitude of Olamus in general and Olam Haza, so of course it's a limited type of chesed. What draws that chesed is the people in this world doing chesed, and yes, there's a limited measurement to their chesed, like we just said, according to halacha, according to Torah, eishtos lamay, there is a measurement how much tzedakah would one need to give, obligated to give a tenth. He wants to do the mitzvah in a more choicier manner, he would give 20%, a chaimesh. So when people do that, especially they extend themselves to the chaimesh, to the 20%, it draws more and more chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It would still be called chesed olam because 20% is not 21%. There's still a measurement, but if understandably, when you extend yourself from 10 to 20, you draw additional chesed, additional kindness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to enter into a world which, besides bringing chayas, vitality, to mahava machayim mekayim, to bring in existence, and to vivify and vitalize matters of Elam Haza, to draw a bracha into Elam Haza, you need a lot. And the more we do kindness with each other, our arousal below, we draw more and more chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Still, it would be called chesed olam because the mitzvahs which we do, and in this case, the tzedakah which we do, is also associated with measurement. 10th, obligated to give, we climb from 10 to 20. 20 would be the mitzvah min hamuvchar, so that you have measurement even with your climbing, with the ability to extend that very mitzvah. There's still the measurement because you're talking about the chesed olam which you have to draw into Olam Haza. And he goes on, he says, he says the makeup of Elam Haza, the makeup of the world is also limited. Besides this, which is evident to us, as we just mentioned, time, space, and everything, time and space. Alter Rebbe uses time and space. Alter Rebbe himself, this is the general component of Elam Haza. Alter Rebbe has in Shar Yichud Ve'emunah, in the 6th chapter, a click away. But he says that the Olam itself, the measurement of Olam is expressed in the fact that the world itself is Tov Kuf Shana. So the Chazal, our sages of blessed memory, speak about the actual measurement of this world. It says, how long would it take from one to walk from the earth to the heaven? It would take an average person walking 500 years. So again, that says, that's a demonstration of grandness, if you will. Man cannot walk consecutively for 500 years. He has to rest and so on. The average man, at least up till now, in the past they did, but presently people do not live for 500 years. So we think about someone walking for 500 years. Whoa, that's a lot. And that's very grand, which the Gemara is trying, the Medrash, the Chazal, our sages of blessed memory, are telling us one way or another the grandness of Elam Haza, that from Oretz, from land, to the Rikiya, there's 7 heavens, to heaven in general, it would take 500 years of an average person to walk, which tells you how grand things are. Conversely, it also tells you that everything of Olam is limited. It's 500 years, not 501 years, or not 500 years and a day. So you see measurement to this world. And so too it says from one rakia, from one heaven to the other, there's also that same measurement, which tells you, yes, on one hand, it's on the surface, you get this sense of enormity and of the space, if you will, between one heaven and the other, and how big that heaven is. It's again about that rakia of all these 7 heavens. Now, to explain them exactly with physical terms, it's not simple, and it's not relevant over here. But the point over here is that even when the Chazal tell us about the grandness of Olam and how big and how large and how much space there is between the land and Rakia and between every level of heaven to the next. Together with that, we glean of measurement, we glean of limitation. It's 500 and not more. And so too in the context of time. Shit al vishnin dahavi alma. This world, this planet, this world was created for 6,000 years. After the 6,000 years, a different order. Chat chruv, like we say, it's not going to be the same for the seventh millennium and the millennia to the first six. The world, the way it is, was created for 6,000 years. Yes, we're holding towards the end. Mashiach must come in the next little while, and of course he's coming now. Hashem will not wait, understandably, to the very last year. And besides, the idea of Mashiach, whatever Mashiach is all about, is unfolding in front of our eyes as we know it, in so many different ways, from the perspective of the Arubis HaShamayim and the Mayonis HaTahaim, which is again the revelation of Teres Achsidus, the idea of Malahar Deus Hashem, the access to Teres Achsidus, the access to Torah, how technology has brought Torah so close, of course, if it's used in a proper way. It's enormous, the idea of Malahar Deus Hashem, and it's unfolding more and more. And of course, to the Yid, nothing less than a full redemption, full bracha to every single Yid without exception. Yerushalayim Yer HaKodesh, Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, Ki mitzvahs retzeinecha, the renewal of the mitzvahs, so many mitzvahs which we don't have today. Of course, we talk about the Gula HaMitis VaShlema, a true and complete redemption. This is all going to happen within the six millennia, which means the 6,000 years. But at the end of the day, the world was created only for 6,000 years. Whoa, that's a long time. Yet, in the same token, it's limited. It's 6,000, not 6,001. And yes, not 6,000 and even a day, and an hour, and a minute. Because this is the makeup of Elam Hazeh. It's about Hagbala, it's about limitation. And therefore, therefore, it was given a measurement for the performance of and the execution of the mitzvah of charity and kindness within Torah, like any other mitzvah Torah, just like we said in Tefillin or the Lulav and the Esrig, which actually Esrig also, right, Machlekes and Sukkah, how big the Esrig could be. The Esrig also has a measurement, how small it could be and how big it can be. Remember the talking with the Esrig, because Kivi came to shul with an Esrig on his shoulder, which is the maximum one could hold both hands. Just an interesting halacha. The biggest esrig is that you could hold it with both your hands. If with both your hands cannot hold the esrig, it's disqualified. We can understand why you put it on his shoulder. It was a huge esrig. But again, it has its measurement. It can't be bigger than that. And again, when it comes to how small an esrig be, also you have the machlekes. If it's like an egg, it's like a walnut or like an egg. But this is all measurements associated with every single mitzvah. Here, the Alter Rebbe brings the lulav, he brings the shofar, he brings the tzitzis, the tefillin, but by extension, even the mitzvah tzedakah. Olam chesed yibana. So one would say, okay, let me give so much tzedakah because I want to make sure the olam is well anchored. Well, what type of olam? You have an olam which is limited, but it looks like such a grand olam. And guess what? It is, or rather, it is a big olam. Very big, very complex. And even when the Chazal want to speak about how grand this olam is, this world is, and between the olam and the first rakia, it's 500 years. That's a lot. That's very grand. Nonetheless, you see the idea of finitude embedded or part and parcel of the olam. And so too when it comes a time, 1,000 years, it sounds grand. Yeah, 1,000 years is grand, but we could, understand and appreciate the notion of 1,000 years. How quick time flies. It was just 5 years ago. It just happened now. No, it was 5 years ago. And so too, the entire creation of the world is associated with a limitation in time. And again, in the context of time, the world was created for 6,000 years, not a day or an hour more. So because the world, which is sustained and is anchored and is structured, healthily structured through tzedakah, so that tzedakah also has a measurement, because this which you're bringing structure to, this which you're bringing firmness to, is also limited in its scope, in its place, in its time. So the tzedakah, which is the chesed, which Eilam chesed yibana, could also be and is with measurement. 10% one must give. He can climb a bit more, but 20% is a mitzvah min hamuvchar, because at the end of the day, you're establishing this firmness in a world which is also limited in time and in space. We'll stop over here today, but just we'll give a little bit of a tap in a little bit to the Alter Rebbe's message. Alter Rebbe speaks about, as Hashem will continue learning in this coming class, about a new dimension of the mitzvah tzedakah. Now, why would you need a new dimension of the mitzvah tzedakah? So Alter Rebbe points out that in the end of the day, what brings about this ayr, which is meant to come into Eilam, is the Yid's performance of all mitzvahs, his being careful, and more so, super careful, scrupulous in this which he's not meant to do, which interferes in the hashpah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu into Eilam, starting from the human being, and particularly the Yid. So this regular tzedakah is when everything else in the relationship of the Yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is okay, if you will. But if there is an additional fragmentation in that relationship, and the different ayers could not come in because the person didn't do the mitzvahs he's meant to do, he or she are meant to do, or was not careful in this what they were meant not to do, or to speak, or to think, and so on, which establishes a certain misconfiguration in all the hashpahs with the human being, particularly the Yid, and by extension to the entire world. At that point, it's not enough to just draw this regular chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the regular giving tzedakah. There, at that point, one has to introduce the entire, which Alter Rebbe is going to tell us about, an entire different idea of tzedakah, which is, of course, associated with the tikkun of the nefesh, because everything goes via the Yid. And if there is a fragmentation in the relationship with the Yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu because of their overall conduct, it's not enough. It's not enough to just do the regular tzedakah to bring about that chesed, which would be the chesed eilam, to establish the firmness and the bracha within Ilmaz, because everything else is not really going well. As you have, for example, a vehicle, let's say a vehicle, and everything is good, everything is good, just put a certain amount of gas and oil and so on, and you're good to go. But if there's certain leaks, as an example, you can't just put them in a regular amount of gas or oil, whatever it is. You have to put a lot. You have to add more and more and more, because there are issues, and you have to maybe do certain things in order to block the leak and so on. You can't just do the regular when things are not regular. And so too in relationship with Yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which he is usually the conduct as a Yid, he or she the conduct to which all the hashpah and olam comes through. So when there is that fragmentation, so to say, and compromise in that relationship, so then you can't just rely on the regular chesed. Then there is the chesed bli gvul in our avodah beyond 20%, to the extent even 100%. Kol asher yitin lish bad nafshei. As the Alter Rebbe is going to give an example, we spoke about it also in the end of Gimel in Igeres HaTshuva. Click away, the third segment of Tanya, Igeres HaTshuva. The idea also, another place the Alter Rebbe introduces this idea of Kol asher yitin lish bad nafshei. There's no measurement to that, because at that point you have to draw a infinite amount of chesed, of energy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu into Eilam. Not the regular chesed, the chesed Eilam, that would not work. You need an infinite amount of chesed in order to fill in all the cavities which were lacking of the air, and so on and so forth. And how do we draw it? Through our infinite amount of limitless extension and giving of tzedakah. This is ultimately the Alter Rebbe's message. He puts it into the words Chazdi Hashem Kilei Samnu. He asked the question, should it be Samu? I don't want to jump the gun over here, but how beautifully, how sweetly the Alter Rebbe explains this pasuk. It doesn't say Samu, Lei Samnu. The Alter Rebbe says Einonu Tmimim. There's so many cavities which exist which needed to be filled with the light through our performance of mitzvahs, and not chas v'shalom to interfere the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu through our lack of being careful with this. Hashem asks us not to do as an example. So lei savnu, that point we have to use the chasdei Hashem. We have to do the chesed bli gvul of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The bli gvul type of chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because you need a bli gvul hashpah to come into Eilam. So we have to draw it into Eilam. We have to do our Yisur L'Sata to give bli gvul tzedakah. It's not 20, it's not 30%, it's kol she'itin litzbad nafshe, in order to draw this bli gvul chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. May Hashem help that we should experience because of the true bli gvul chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and may manifest in all areas of life, individually and collectively, into all of Am Yisrael, and to the entire world. We look forward to continuing. B'ezras Hashem, have a wonderful night.